Hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining Jade Global today for the webinar on our excess and obsolete inventory management solution. My name is Sangeeta Jash and I am the Assistant Manager, Marketing Communications at Jade Global and also your moderator today for this webinar. We have Manoj Rathi here with us to discuss this topic in more detail. I would like to tell you a little bit about our company. Jade Global is an Oracle Platinum partner and is a leading information technology services and solutions provider. We deliver the right combination of business knowledge, product and technical expertise, project management and flexible delivery models to every engagement to ensure every client's long-term growth and success in business. For more information, please visit our website www.jglobal.com. Now I would like to introduce Manoj Rathi. Manoj is the Consulting Director at Jade Global. He is a supply chain SME and has designed and implemented a number of supply chain planning and execution solutions for the high-tech, discrete and green energy industries, including multiple warehouse management engagements. I will hand it over to Manoj now, who will review the agenda and continue with the presentation. Over to you, Manoj.
Hey, thanks, Sangeeta. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So today, we will cover excess and obsolete inventory reserves. What is the need for E&O reserves? What are the typical reserves, which includes E&O? And also, we will look at a typical E&O process. And then what we will do is we will take a look at Jade Global's solution for E&O reserves and the key processes that we include in our solution or in our offering to the clients. Then we will also go over some screenshots of the application just to go over, get a glimpse of what that solution looks like. And then we will go over some of the options that companies can use on top of the solution itself, because the solution is basically a core solution, and to make it fit in your organization, we will have to we have some options that you can make use of. And then we will look at benefits of using a systemic solution for managing your E&O reserves. So let's quickly go over the need for E&O reserves. So it's a GAAP and IFRS requirement. Basically, they need you to report your net inventory accurately, and any information regarding potential excess and obsolescence, they want you to create a provision for that in your GL and make sure that your inventory is netted from your gross and any reserves against your inventory. Typically, you would see that E&O or other reserves are calculated and maintained in spreadsheets, which is a manual process, highly error-prone and time-consuming. I have seen companies taking as long as 5 weeks to complete one E&O analysis. Because of this manual, error-prone and time-consuming process, I have seen a lot of companies, they are very conservative in terms of applying their E&O reserves or creating E&O provisions for a quarter. One of the reasons being, a conservative approach flies better with your auditors, and you have less risk with any SEC compliance issues. But because of that, actually, you report your profits lower and you create higher provisions. One more thing I've seen is complex rules to release previously applied reserves. So every company will have their own rules and old policies, how to release previously applied reserves. And one of the things I've seen is, when you are trying to release, you need to have evidences against which you are releasing these reserves, because that is basically nothing but a pure profit for your company. So it needs a lot of systemic evidences or a lot of evidences that you have to provide when you are releasing previously applied reserve. And of course, audit cost and time, typically with a manual E&O process, it's very high. And I have seen no other off-the-shelf tool is available in the market for E&O analysis. So that's where we decided to build a platform where companies can really go in a system and do their E&O analysis. What are the different types of inventory reserves that companies they apply or they provision for? E&O, excess and obsolete, is the most widely used. LCM, lower of cost or market, in some industries it is widely used, especially if your market prices, if your price for the product is going down significantly quarter over quarter, then this LCM reserves would apply to your company. Especially I've seen that in high-tech semiconductor and also sometimes in the solar industry. Aging or non-moving lots, lot products or location-based reserves. So basically some specific reason for which you are creating reserves, like non-moving lots. You see that there is some problem with the lot and you may not be able to realize full market value of the lot by selling it to a customer. Old revisions or end-of-life products, although this could potentially go under obsolete reserves, but a lot of times you may want to track them separately. Engineering, MRB or RMA material, I've seen companies creating reserves for those materials separately. Rework or scrap sub inventory. So if your material is sitting in or it's sitting for rework or it's in scrap sub inventory, even though it's valued in your inventory in your ERP system, you want to write off that value because that's a potential non-sale to the customer. So all these reserves actually, sometimes there is a potential, if you do not track them sequentially, there is a potential that you might write off or you might provision much more than what you should be, because let's say if you have E&O plus LCM, both reserves are applicable for a product, then you do not want to have duplicate reserves there. For example, you are provisioning, let's say 1 million for E&O and you are provisioning another 1 million for LCM. You might have some subset of that which is potential duplicate. So that you have to take care of. So those are the things, when we design this solution and when we help companies implement the right processes for inventory reserves, we look out for. This is a typical E&O process. Typically it starts with your supply demand netting, could be a weekly, monthly or a quarterly process. A lot of times I have seen companies, they do a monthly process of E&O analysis and they only book their reserves every quarter. So the first and second month of the quarter is typically an exercise just to surface out or just to get a glimpse of where you stand in terms of your expected provisions. So you would see that there would be some exceptions that various departments would come in and apply. For example, even if your, let's say, supply demand netting comes out with, let's say, 10,000 units which are excess on top of your on top of your demand horizon that you use for your E&O calculation. So somebody from your company, like let's say your sales group, may come back and say, oh, we would be able to sell it. So they can take manual exception against it. Sometimes you may have some minimum order quantities that you have to purchase from your vendors. So you don't want to provision for those, even though if it is, let's say, 2 or 3 years worth of demand, you still want to continue with or classify that inventory as a good inventory, not applicable for E&O reserves. Other auto exceptions could be, let's say your demands are not entered, or for some items you look back for usage, how much has been your historical usage rather than demand. So those kind of things companies, they take for, or they use either auto or manual exceptions to not provision that, even though your supply demand netting says it's excess. So once that analysis is done, it is typically, it goes through a review and approval process, wherein I have seen your inventory management, your planning group, your supplier management or procurement group, as well as your demand management, product managers. So all these groups, they come together. Of course, cost accounting would be there because they finally value the inventory. So all these groups, they come together, they work in a collaborative way. I mean, some companies, they do work in collaborative ways. Some companies, it is more sequential. So it just goes through emails one after the other. So this is where, I mean, you review the system generated ENO numbers, and then basically people come back and take exception to the ENO numbers, and then it goes through an approval process. That's how I have seen in most companies ENO process working, and finally it goes through a management review process. So what we bring here is it's not just, let's say, a solution that we come and just give it to you and you configure it and implement, or we implement it for you. What we bring to the table is a lot of depth in this subject matter, in this subject area, to basically get a view of how you are doing it today. What are some of the gaps in your ENO analysis process? Are you being overly conservative, or are you missing out on certain things which, let's say, might potentially come up if you have a change in your auditors? Let's say if you have your audit partner change, I mean, you might see that they come back and they say, oh, you cannot do it this way. You have some potential exposure there. So those kind of things, we can come in and take a look at it. We can help you improve your compliance. And also, if you are being over conservative, we can help you provide the right evidences and put in a right process to get the right numbers instead of a conservative number for ENO. So once this is all done, I mean, you will see that even external auditors, they are very heavily involved in ENO audits. One of the reasons is because this is 100% impacting your profit. So whatever ENO number ENO provision you apply for that quarter is 100% impacting your profit. So there is a potential for companies to basically manipulate the profit number, the margin number for that quarter. So auditors, they take a real good look at ENO analysis, whatever reserves you are applying. So so keeping all this in mind, I mean, what we did was we created a platform, a solution that we can come and help implement the industry best practices for companies who are still working with manual spreadsheets. And a lot of times a change in cost accounting person who is owning that process may completely derail the whole process. And I mean, it may be a costly. So what we are trying to do here is to come up with some kind of solution, baseline solution, which we can come help implement in your company, and then you will have a systemic process with a nice user interface, and using all your ERP data to basically come up with the right numbers to help you report the right net inventory value and provisions for every quarter, and also keep a track of these things, provide excellent audit capabilities, reporting capabilities, so you can basically attach files against any manual exception or auto exceptions that you are taking. So helping basically with compliance and confidence levels in your ENO numbers. Also, the collaborative review and approval process, what we have done, and we will see that later, is to basically we have added accountability factor in the whole process. So if somebody is taking a manual exception, let's say if your demand manager comes back and says, oh, I will sell it, don't worry, I have a customer who can buy it, maybe for a little less margin. So you want them to basically be accountable for that. So they can put some commit date, and they can take that exception with the commit date. And you can track that commit date next time when you run the ENO analysis for the same item. So that basically, that's one example. The other example could be your product manager or product engineer could come and say, oh, I can use that material in some other finished goods. I can do some tweaks and use that for other finished goods, so don't provision it. So those kind of exceptions, you can go with a commit date on it. You can have a lot of accountability on it. You can keep a track of who said what or who took the exception, and then next time when you do the E&O analysis, you can go back and see, are people really working to those commit dates and the manual exceptions that they took. If not, then next time you can easily question. Yeah, one thing I would like to mention that this solution is certified by Oracle. So what value we provide? First and foremost is, I mean, Jade Global has a lot of depth in this subject area, in the E&O analysis subject area, and we can bring that. We can bring that to your company to help you identify if you have any gaps in your current process. And I have seen even big companies like more than $1 billion revenue companies. I have seen that their processes, they have gaps. Even their policies are not correct or are not being the right compliant policies. So I have helped them basically rewrite policies or change their policies around E&O to make it more accurate and help with the compliance factor. One of the key areas where I have seen people really struggle is releasing prior E&O provisions. So once you sell your component or sell your material off, you can really go back and release the prior E&O provisions. But then that whole process is, you have to ensure that you have really sold that inventory, and then only you can take the provision off. And that part is very tricky for a lot of companies. If it's just a finished good, you can always go back and see how much you have shipped, and you can come back and take the provision out. But a lot of times it's not just finished goods. It's also the raw material or any in between components, sub-assemblies that may come into picture, and it will be very difficult because you are using those sub-assemblies for, let's say, 10, 15, 20 different finished goods. So that may become really difficult for you to understand how much was the shipment for that sub-assembly. And a lot of times, I mean, companies, they just go with built-ups or usage to build finished goods as the key criteria to release prior E&O provisions. If that works for your company, well and good. But a lot of times it has its own flaws because, I mean, let's say if you are a semiconductor company and you have a tested product which you just change the part number and did a little bit of value add and made it a finished good. Ideally, you should not be releasing prior E&Os unless, I mean, you have really sold it off. But, I mean, potentially you could fly or you could do away with it. With this solution, actually, the overall cycle time for E&O analysis, you can cut it down to hours rather than days or weeks that I have seen a lot of companies struggle with. So you can cut it down to literally hours. Of course, I mean, it depends on how much time it takes for you to review and approve, to go through that collaboration process of review and approval. But other than that, I mean, we are talking about maybe a couple of hours of whole process time. So what that helps you with is you can run simulations and mid-cycle analysis. So instead of doing a monthly E&O analysis, you can just do weekly or every 3-4 days. You can, or whenever you want on demand, you can just run an E&O analysis, and within, let's say, an hour or so, you have the data to see what is your potential exposure or what is the movement in your E&O number, and you can start taking corrective actions right away instead of waiting for, let's say, quarter end to get the E&O numbers finalized and the whole review and approval process done before you apply the provisions or before anybody takes manual exceptions. So you can basically start the mitigation actions right away. And that's a big benefit, especially in E&O, because time is very critical for any excess and obsolete inventory. If you know that this is potentially going to be excess, you can make the call right away, and you can try to sell it when the market is still there. But let's say within 3-4 months, the market will be completely gone for your product, and you may not be able to sell it. So time is very critical in the E&O inventory management process. Another key aspect of E&O inventory management process, where I've seen time is very critical, is your new product introduction. So what you can do is, if you know when or how much you have, and you can basically decide on when you want to do the new product introduction. So you can very precisely plan your NPIs. If you have a good E&O analysis tool, you can do it maybe without E&O analysis also in your supply demand or in your supply chain planning tool. But this would help you because it has a built-in collaborative process which can help you decide better when you want to do NPI. Of course, one of the key values that we bring is we have talked to about 10 different controllers and key cost accounting users to build this. In fact, my background also, I have a lot of experience in cost accounting. I even worked at a company as their acting cost accounting manager for about a year. It was about a $500 million peak revenue company, which is what now it's acquired by some other company. So bringing all that background, we have tried to make sure that we bring in the best practices and we give the right business solution to our customers. This is a schematic of how this solution is and what kind of data and what kind of processes we have. So first you will see that there is demand data, supply data. In supply data you could see that it's not just your inventory and work in process from your let's say ERP system, but you can also have open PO receipts, any PO commitments, purchasing commitments that you have, and you want to check potential exposure around your purchasing commitments. Any contract manufacturer inventory and WIP which you don't own, but you still have some exposure or some agreement that if it becomes obsolete, you will still buy it from them. And the cost to complete analysis also is important, because let's say if you have a raw material which is $1 worth and your cost to complete is $9 versus let's say you have $9 of material and the cost to complete is $1, then you can make some calls on whether you want to build it and sell it cheaper in the market, or you just want to scrap it. Transaction history, we bring in transaction history for a couple of reasons. One is to determine how the product is doing, and if it was previously provisioned for E&O, you can look at the shipments, you can look at usage, you can look at scraps and other transactions to see how much movement you have and what kind of release or new provision you need to make. Master data, of course, items, bombs, exception rules, and a lot of other profiles and list of values and lookup values. We have made use of like a configurable, try to make it a configurable solution. And also you can use product hierarchy. You can extend the solution to use product hierarchy. Historical reserves, that's very key data set that you would have. So you can basically bring in as much history as you want of your prior E&O provisions or E&O analysis, and store it in this solution, so that you can always go back and look at it or report from it, or compare your history with your current E&O provisions. This is just a glimpse of how the E&O number is calculated. This is just supply demand netting logic, which you have an option in our solution. Either you can use our solution for that, We have our built-in supply-demand netting logic, but also you can use your current planning tool, whatever you are using, to do the supply-demand netting, and from there we can just get the netted data and use it for E&O analysis for the auto exceptions, manual exceptions, the collaborative review and approval process, wherein we have parallel review and approvals wherever possible. Both, I mean, parallel and sequential, you can decide. So you can use a cutoff date for demand here. You can decide that in our supply-demand netting logic. Use auto exceptions, and you can basically either extract the whole data from system, or you can use spreadsheet upload. So that's a key feature we have provided all through the solution for almost all user interfaces, where they can take a spreadsheet and just upload it. Because, I mean, working in the industry, I have seen a lot of times, I mean, there is a comfort level that users have with spreadsheets, and they would like to see the data in that tabular format in a spreadsheet. So, so I know, I mean, it's the usability factor that we are trying to address here. So you can always communicate using spreadsheets with the solution. Usage or consumption. So this is the key, as I was saying, I mean, releasing prior E&O reserves. So that's, I would say that is probably the biggest benefit of the solution that we could give, because I've seen a lot of companies struggle with prior E&O releases, because, and they are very conservative in those determinations. But with our solution, you can always have the right information at your tooltips or mouse tips, and you can take a look at that information, maybe take a snapshot of that, keep that as an evidence against which you are releasing prior E&O. First of all, I mean, we will have system itself look at all this information and come up with recommendations along with evidences to help you determine your release requirements. And on top of that, I mean, you can always manually override the system generated numbers and provide your own evidences, which you can store for future audit. You can see that it's not just shipment of single level item, so you can always go up and down in your product structure to see how that product structure is doing as a whole, rather than just a single item. Again, I mean, one more thing you can do in usage and consumption is you can use your POS data or some other data that you may want to use, determine any release requirement or consumption. You can basically upload that directly in the system instead of extracting it from ERP. So you have both options. Yeah, some companies, I mean, if you are working with distribution channels, some disti channels, you probably would have deferred COGS requirement, and you don't count your inventory shipped to distributor as a real shipment, and you always look at the POS data to identify your release requirements or determine your release requirements. So that can be easily done here. You just have to upload the POS data. Exceptions, auto and manual exceptions. As I said earlier, you can take these exceptions. So auto exceptions will be used directly by our process to come up with the exception quantities and come up with the latest E&O or the modified E&O quantity for every item. But you can also have manual exceptions, so you can go and take any manual exceptions against any of the E&O records. Or actually you can take any non-E&O record and maybe put or apply E&O reserves against that. So you can go either way. Because sometimes you may still have demand, but you still want to provision it for some other reason, whatever it may be. So that's pretty much about the E&O part of it, how we calculate, track, maintain, store, report, and use for future or use for comparisons period over period. One more factor, I mean, you would see that a lot of companies they do the E&O and they also do LCM, and then they maintain both reserves and come up with the final number. So we have our solution extensible, scalable to also go and do the LCM reserves calculations for you. So you can provide your ASP. So ASP, when you upload demand, you have an option of uploading ASPs along with demand. And the way we have ASPs is you can always split your demand. So by period, you can have different ASPs. So for the same item, you can say that, okay, my market prices are going down. So you can always put the ASP trend in your demand itself. So instead of uploading just one record for your demand, you can always have, let's say, next 12 months, 12 records, and each one of them may have different ASP. Then your unit cost, whatever inventory you have the unit cost for that. And then cost to complete and sell. So you can also provide cost to complete and sell for that particular item. So if it's finished good, then you probably will have, let's say, 3-4% as your cost to complete and sell. But if it is mid-level item, which is like in between in your product structure, some sub-assembly or some raw material, then for those items you can use cost to complete and sell very intelligently to come up with the right LCM reserve number. And you would see that the way we have designed the solution is, it will go and it will look at the finished goods first, start consuming finished goods, then the demand will start consuming finished goods, and it will go to sub-assembly. So it will keep going down in the product structure, or I would say up in the product structure, and finally it will go to raw material, and then it will come up with the E&O number or the LCM number for each one of those items based on your supply demand netting. So netting is also intelligent in our solution that way, and then you can always look at you can use the right ASP. So even in your demand, it will go in a chronological sequence. It will always pick the first, the nearest future demand first, and then it will keep going up to, let's say, the next 12 months or 24 months, whatever you use for your reserve calculations as your demand horizon. History upload, as I said, you can upload as many periods of history as you want. You can basically take that, every time you run the E&O analysis, you freeze it, we push it to history, and we create a snapshot of your E&O analysis in history, one per period. So that's the restriction we have. You can only keep one per period, because that's the final number that you would be reporting SEC or using for your SEC report. So basically, you can upload as many period history as you want. Also, you can use that in any analytical reporting tool to look at trends and do all kinds of fancy analysis. Also, as I said, you can compare one reserve with multiple past periods. So you can go, you can keep comparing it with multiple past periods to come up with the new or with the delta between. If you compare it with last quarter versus, let's say, 3 quarters back, what is the delta? So you can always do those comparisons. And it's a secured repository for historic information. So in our solution, we have created that constraint that once you push it to history, users, they cannot change it. And if they have to change, it has to go through a change request within your organization. So only IT would be able to change it from backend. Solution options. Some of the options, that we have kept in our solution. So basically, the solution is more of a platform where you can make it fit for your own process. And of course, before doing that, we always recommend, and I think that's what I have seen with our customers so far, that they want us to come and first take a look at their process, what they have, and then we go through some rounds of discussion on what their process should be. So it typically it involves a process change in the organization, because if you are working with spreadsheets, you are working, or your process is designed with the limitations of spreadsheets in mind. But with a systemic solution, I mean, you can leave those constraints aside and you can take a fresh look at your process and see how you can optimize the whole process. So extend the solution to identify and track potential issues with inventory. So that's one of the key solution option that we have. So this solution, initially it was built for cost accounting, but the same solution, I mean, your inventory management or ops guys can use to do their inventory analysis. So rather than using, let's say, 1 year or 2 year as your demand horizon for reporting E&O to SEC, you can use some other demand horizon which your ops guys see as more relevant for their inventory, and you can use that to basically surface out potential inventory issues. So for example, if you see that your supply lead time is, let's say, 3 months, and you have your inventory for 6 months, then you see that there is 3 months worth of excess inventory that you don't need, and you should probably tighten your inventory controls built on that particular item. So you can always see what is, let's say, where you stand compared to your supply lead time or your demand horizon or your capacity. So those kind of things you can see with the inventory management. So you can basically make use of this solution for as an inventory management or inventory optimization solution, and it provides you accountability feature wherein, I mean, you can go do the collaborative review of your inventory, and people can be accountable or can own the action items against reducing or against optimizing your inventory levels. I mean, it could also be, let's say, your demand for the next 3 months is 10,000 units, but you only have and your supply lead time is 3 months, so, and you only have, let's say, 5,000 units, and there is no PO created yet, then that comes out as a potential flag that you may not be able to fulfill some of your demand. So it goes both ways, but typically I have seen, I mean, it will be going on one side, like you will see excess more often than lack of inventory in some cases. But yeah, you can use both. Integrate the solution with GL. I mean, you can create some kind of integration with GL directly, so you can push the E&O data, E&O provisions, the net change in your E&O provisions directly to GL, along with the details. The built-in approval process basically provides you a workflow. You can always configure it and maintain it and reconfigure it as you need to. And in ERP itself, I mean, you can manage lot level reserves and make use of some attributes that you can pull into this solution and use some other reserves also on top of E&O. So you can basically do some pre-processing using lot attributes. Taking a quick look, so you will see that there are nice dashboards that you can see on the landing page, and you can see that we have E&O analysis, transaction data, supply demand netting, and the approval process, reports, and setups. So you have a full feature application that we are offering now. Some screenshots, so you will see that basically you can have all this solution configurable. It's more like a tabular format, and basically built using the latest Oracle ADF technology. You can see the interface and reporting. It's very nice, very rich. Of course, I mentioned that configurable and scalable solution. So just summarizing, why E&O reserves? It's because GAAP and IFRS requirement. And what value we add is we come and help you improve visibility and accuracy of your E&O. yeah, one point I think that I forgot to mention earlier is you can convert your data audits to system audits. So with manual spreadsheets, typically your auditors would do a data audit, but once you implement a system, they will do a systemic audit, and then your data audits are less frequent or less in number. So you can save on your audit time and eventually, cost of audits significantly. Adding accountability, better user experience, configurable solution, and easy maintenance. Those are some of the key features from the technology side. Allow devotion to operational analysis and drive action. So instead of companies just trying to come up with the right number, I think with this solution, they're focused on shift to basically adding the accountability, and they can start using this solution, as I said earlier, like for inventory management. So before the inventory becomes E&O, they can surface out the issues and start taking actions. And as I said earlier, you have to be accurate, but not overly conservative. So with, this solution would help you do exactly the same. And what, as a company, what we recommend is even before, we come and start showing solution, we recommend that you should first go through an E&O process assessment. So we do offer advisory services on E&O process assessment. I have myself done it a couple of times, and we have a full team that has built the solution that are, people those are capable of people those who know this subject matter really well. And what we can do is very quickly we can come and review your current E&O process, maybe map it, create a flow chart of what the current process is. We can compare it with industry best practices. So we have a list of industry best practices along with different KPIs that we have seen in the industry. What are the best, how best run companies they do, and where they stand on their E&O numbers. Both around calculating excess and obsolescence, how to calculate that, tracking it across multiple periods, releasing, and preventive control. So on all four fronts, we can bring in industry best practices with some real numbers from some real companies. So we can come up with, we do have some analysis of real numbers from real companies that we can bring to the table. Identifying improvement opportunities and right solutions. So that's the first thing we would do. And if we identify that, okay, your company is doing extremely well, then probably you don't even need a systemic solution, or you may still want to go with a systemic solution. But what we can do is we can really come in and help you first access where you are, and then define where you want to be, and then we can help you basically go there, most likely using the solution that we have. Creating a roadmap to implement industry best practices, and we can help you with KPIs and metrics to track your E&O. With the solution, what kind of benefits you might be looking at. So reduce E&O analysis time and user productivity by about 80%. So I've seen, like with spreadsheets, this E&O analysis, it's a very time-consuming job. A lot of times, for big companies, there will be people in cost accounting just dedicated to do E&O analysis. And that's the whole thing they would do throughout their, or maybe that's about 50% that they would do. The other 50% could be for the periods. Rest of the month they would do something else. But for 10, 15, 20 days, they would be doing just E&O analysis, managing the data, determining the E&O numbers, going through the review and approval process. So that's a big time killer, a productivity killer in the organization. So with a solution like this, you can definitely raise the productivity by 80%. And it's more of a self-service. People can come in, put their own exceptions. It has a review and approval process built in. So what you need for the super user to do, or the process owner to do, is just maybe have some quick review, maintain it, make sure that the business rules that are set up are current for current business situation. You can reduce your E&O numbers by up to 15-20%. We have seen our customers, really do that just by not being overly conservative, and also by applying the accountability factor. You can close periods faster. I've seen a lot of companies, they start their E&O analysis way in advance before the period close, and then even during period close, they have to do some final round of analysis, end of quarter analysis, which takes at least a day or so for most companies. I've seen companies taking 2-3 days to basically just close the E&O process at the end of quarter after all the analysis has been done previously. So all that, you can basically, you have a potential to reduce your period close time significantly. Reduce inventory cost. Of course, with accountability, you can see that inventory cost eventually would go down. Improve accuracy and confidence levels, which will reduce your audit cost. Improve productivity and reduce delays. So you can do multiple E&O analysis, and that also can help you reduce your inventory cost by initiating the mitigation action well in advance.
Will you leave a little quick update about our company? Some information that Jade Global is headquartered at San Jose, California, with offices in New Jersey and India. If you have any questions or want to know more about our solutions and services, then you can call us, or you can also email us at marketing@jadeglobal.com. We'll help out with any query you have. Thank you very much for attending the webinar, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Thank you.